I'm going to start this review by making one thing clear. I didn't like this movie, but I didn't like the other Transformer films either. So I'm sure someone out there is going to hear me complain about this film and say, well, what did you expect? You knew what you were getting into. Yeah, I thought I did, but this movie isn't just bad. This is bad even by the standards of the other Transformer films. Alright, normally on these mini reviews, I start by giving you a plot synopsis, but I've got a lot of ground to cover in a short amount of time, so screw it. Cybertron is coming to Earth, Prime is brainwashed, Mark Wahlberg and a woman who looks shockingly like Megan Fox are trying to find Merlin's staff, the robots fight each other. There. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the problems with this movie. The many problems. The first problem you'll notice is the editing, and I know you might say, oh, only film snobs notice bad editing. I never noticed that. Trust me, you will notice this editing. When I reviewed The Mummy, I talked about how it had 6 writers, and you could tell because the tone of the film was all over the place. Transformers 5 had 6 editors. I have never heard of something like that. How is that possible? How do 6 people edit one movie? Not very well, that's how. This movie moves at an insane pace. It will cut on the last frame of a character talking right into the first frame of someone else talking, and because of this, the film constantly feels like people are teleporting. You will have someone talking in one location only to cut quickly to them talking somewhere else, and it feels like it's the same scene. You will have a series of events cut together so quickly that it's supposed to feel like hours or days have passed, but it feels almost instantaneous. You think I'm making this up? You think I'm exaggerating about how bad this editing is? The editing of this film is so bad, the aspect ratio keeps changing constantly. Roughly every 20 to 30 seconds, the aspect ratio will change from widescreen to IMAX. You will see just random bars appear in the top and bottom of the screen, and I don't mean they change it for action scenes or for when something dramatic is happening. You'll just have 3 people talking in a room and the aspect ratio will keep changing in mid-sentence and then change back 2 seconds later. It's seriously like 3 of these editors were told the movie was supposed to be 1 aspect ratio, and the other 3 were told something different, and none of them wanted to work together. And as I said, because the editing is so psychotic, this movie moves fast, and not in a good way. This movie is a barrage on your senses, especially your ears. The characters are talking constantly in this movie. That might not sound like a bad thing, but I kid you not, there isn't 2 seconds in a row in this film where someone isn't talking unless they're filling that space with an explosion. Think about that. Think about a movie where they never give you a second to raise tension. They never give you a moment to think about what you just experienced. Never give you time to just soak things in. Never give you an instant to let the action on screen speak for itself. Heck, they never even give you an establishing shot unless someone is talking over it. This movie has the personality of a nervous, sweaty guy on a first date who thinks that if he just keeps talking, then his date won't realize he's full of crap. And it would be one thing if the dialogue was good, but this might be the worst dialogue in the entire franchise, and I'd like to remind you, the second film didn't even have a script. All this dialogue is shockingly bad, and half of it is either just explaining the plot or simply saying the exact thing that is happening on screen at that moment. And part of that is because they want this film to succeed in the foreign market. So they know, well, we have to just explain things constantly for everyone who is going to see this with subtitles in other countries. And I'm sorry, but I find that to be kind of insulting to the intelligence of the foreign market, and especially insulting to the American market, because you're basically telling us, yeah, we don't care if you like this or not. We're still gonna make our money off of it. And you know what's sad? This is normally where in my mini reviews I'd start to wrap things up, but I've barely scraped the surface of this one. So now, in order to cover as much ground as possible, as quickly as possible, I present you with the Salty Rundown. Ahem. That little girl you saw in the trailer who they promote as the new star of this franchise, she's here for half an hour at the most, then she leaves for 90 minutes, then barely comes back for the end. Same thing goes for evil Optimus Prime. His evil side is 90% him just riding to Earth only to then land, fight Bumblebee, and then immediately be turned good again. So if you came here to see evil Prime, man, you are going to be ticked. And as for what causes him to turn back to being good, I won't spoil it, but I will just say, save Martha! And speaking of the DCU, 20 minutes into this film, the US government, who has sworn to destroy all Transformers, teams up with the Decepticons to fight the Autobots, and then it turns into the most blatant Suicide Squad ripoff imaginable. There is a Decepticon Suicide Squad in this film, and suicide is the key term because they spend 10 minutes introducing you to this squad only for them to all be killed in 3. And if you have a problem with collateral damage in these films, this will make you look back at those previous films fondly. There is literally a moment where the good guys kill innocent bystanders, and I don't mean, oh, there's a big fight and explosion, so if we think about the film logically, then clearly some people died in that. No, I mean even going by the dumb logic of this franchise, they still murder people in here. They literally caused 2 cars to crash in a way where no one could survive and then remark on it, geez, you didn't have to kill people. The good guys literally get innocent bystanders murdered in this film. And that's not even the only time this movie just flips the bird to logic. There is a giant planet moving towards ours. They say early on, right at the beginning of this film, that the gravity from it will destroy the Earth. That planet then ridges the Earth, and yeah, we're fine. The gravity does nothing. No one talks about it again. It's one thing to avoid some really obvious logic, but it's another thing to bring it up in your own movie and then forget it later on. But as much as I would like to keep going, and believe me, I could, because there is so much more stupid stuff to talk about in this movie, sadly, I am out of time. But I will say, just to end on something positive, this movie is at least less pervy and racist than the previous Transformer films, and while the other films would go 2 hours without anything interesting happening, at least stuff happens all throughout this one. Then again, that's not always a good thing. As I said, this film moves so fast, it feels like Michael Bay took the 3-hour script that he wanted to make to the studio, and they said, we're not giving you another 3 hours, you get 2.5, and he just said, fine, but I'm not cutting anything out. We're just going to film this 3-hour long movie at double speed. But I will say this, I can't give this the absolute worst review, because while thinking about this film gets me angry, and while just from a pure filmmaking level, it's easily the worst thing I've seen since Norm of the North, I wasn't angry watching this movie. I was just fascinated. I went full Spock on this one. I just couldn't help but sit there in stunned silence that someone actually thought this movie was okay to put in theaters, and had to watch what happens next because I seriously had no idea how stupid it was going to get. And that's why I give this movie 2 out of 10. A very exhausted and tired 2 out of 10. But if you guys want to hear my full spoiler talk on this, where I go into every problem I can think of, and believe me, there were so many, I forgot some, then check out the hour-long rant I went on by clicking on the spoiler talk up there. Also, follow me on Twitter and Tumblr at Professor Thorgi, and spread this video around the web. It's the best way to help this channel grow. And after I went through this, it'd be nice to get some growth. It'd be nice to see something come from this film. Thanks, everyone.